Bed-Stuy. Today I'm venturing out of North Brooklyn and deeper into the heart of the borough. This part of Bed-Stuy is gorgeous, boasting Victorian architecture and historic brownstones. But there've got to be artists here too, right?
Hi, Derek.
How's it going?
Wow, look at all these colors.
It's part of an ongoing series that started in 2015, and it's still in progress.
These all make me feel like, when I'm looking at them, I feel like I'm in whatever this water park is or whatever. I feel like I'm there with them. Yeah.
That's kind of the idea. The figure is always very much positioned in the viewpoint of the viewer, to have a visual exchange. In the beginning, when I was making this series, it was really because I didn't see images of these types of subjects, black figures, in leisurely positionings or environments that looked like this. So I started working on these because I wanted to see it. I started to get images from friends who are artists or friends who are on vacation.
I gotta tell you, it's really funny to me, even before I'd seen a lot of the work, just the idea of paintings of black people relaxing.
Yeah.
Because just that idea is really, the satire of it is so, I don't even have to see them and get it. And then looking at them, I'm like, oh, this is so good, because it's so, we get it that we are living in a place that doesn't want us to relax. It doesn't want us to be able to enjoy our life.
Exactly. And also, with my work, I always think about what type of acts that could be radical without necessarily being purposefully radical. Because we're dimensional, like everyone else, we have areas of experience that are not just about combat. We have experiences where we need to refuel, regenerate, spend time with family, reflect, and a lot of these images are, they're images of actual people I know doing these things that, for me, is equally important as people who protest. It's something that even for us as people, we feel sometimes a little resistant of showing, because I think sometimes we think people are gonna forget about the things that we also are pushing up against. And yeah.
I feel that all the time. And it is you're not being on message, but I also feel like, especially in the last few months, guilty for any enjoyment that I have, because I feel like I'm supposed to be marching right now. I'm supposed to be writing the screed right now or something. I feel just if I laugh, I feel guilty. You know what I mean? Because so many are in pain.
And the thing is, those things are important, and I've done those things as well. But I also understand that it's important for younger people to see themselves depicted in this manner. To me, it's something that is not always the most popularized image in media, and something that I think the next generation needs to see as much as the images of dealing with struggle and dealing with oppressive structures that exist. I would love to see images like this next to images of protest. My hopes is that, in the future, curators will understand how complex representation is, and how they have to actually understand what we want to see, not just what they want people to see.
What shaped your own conception of that, of knowing what people want to see? Like, do you
talking to people, talking to non-art people about things they like and things that they respond to. For me, I'm always interested in the non-art person when I'm making art, because I always think about that audience as the audience to me is more complicated and a little bit more hard to get, to connect to, and to keep. And so I'm always interested in that, because that's like my family for the most part. A lot of my family aren't artists.
I relate to that so much. Like, I make art as well, and I've always a big thing for me has always been like, man, I refuse to make art that my mom couldn't enjoy. Not in terms of no cursing or something like that, but I don't want to be making art that you need a master's degree to enjoy.
Exactly. The access to the work is really important. And the audience who engages with it is also something I think about when I'm making work.
Is there a practicality or significance to being here in Bed-Stuy as opposed to having your studio somewhere else in the city or in North Brooklyn?
One of my goals and one of my dreams have always been to have a studio, not necessarily a big studio or a small studio, but a studio in the neighborhood that's not like a industrial neighborhood. I always wanted to have a studio in the neighborhood of just the regular citizens walking by, hanging out, and I've never had that experience really until recently, because most of the studios I've been in have been studios in big industrial buildings, kind of like on the outskirts of the neighborhoods where there's basically a bunch of artists in a building working. That was good in the beginning of my career as an artist, because I was in the community with my friends and we were, but after a while of doing that, I was really interested in staying connected to the community that I feel I'm very inspired by, because a lot of my materials that I use in my work are from the streets of Bed-Stuy, and go to the dollar store or the fabric shop or the beauty supply. A lot of those places I get inspiration from. In some of these collages I've used fabric, and these fabrics are from the local shops. Sometimes they think I'm a stylist,
Yes.
And then I show them the image of what I was working on that I bought from the supply store. They're like, oh, wow.
Man, when I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, if I would have run across a studio like this, I'd have been because I was always the only artist that I knew. I'm like you, my family didn't make art. And so if I would have known that, I would have been, looking at all your paints and stuff and being like, what? So do you have that? Is that part of your?
Well, the good and bad side of being in a studio that's on the street, once people know you're here, you get visitors all the time, tapping on the window, or people that I know coming by. And it's important for people to see artists. I have friends who have kids who are drawing, and kids who like art, and they ask me can I bring my kid by the studio to see what you're doing and talk to the kids about the individual work, and they ask me questions about how do you make that, and what's that color, why it's so vivid. And I tell them what kind of paints I'm using.
It feels to me a lot I don't know what it is, and I would like you to talk about it, but this whole series to me feels very hip hop. There's something about the energy of it and the colors and the rhythm of it. There's something about it that pops and is bright and is, you know.
I have a lot. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a lot of young Black professionals who collect my work and who support my work. And I think that visual art and music and fashion are becoming a little bit more in sync with each other.
Oh, I love it. I love it. The other thing that feels very hip hop about these to me is there's such an integrated sense of humor that is, I think hip hop doesn't get credit often for how sophisticated its sense of irony and sense of humor is.
Yes.
And that's something I really feel in these. It's there's a wink here, the unicorn has a gold chain, you know what I mean? There's
exactly.
You know, and this homie right here, he's
he's chilling with a drink.
He's got the Drake beard. He's we're having a good time.
And I'm thinking about those things. I'm thinking, how there's a certain level of pride and comfort that we have. So these images are really more about how I want people to look at the figure.
pull nuance out of what the Black experience is, and seems like really enjoying doing it. What words of advice would you give to like just a young artist that you met right now who is just trying to understand their place or what they're doing, a young Black artist?
Most creative people kind of start with this very, especially if you are part of an academic background, you really start with the very westernized idea of what art is and how to present subject matter relating to classical or Renaissance or those things, or you're responding to that in some way, and because you look at it either as a negative or a positive, or you're making work that is about things that really affect you in a negative way, and you're trying to create a positive response from it. But for me, it's always about looking around at the world and looking at art and looking at your peers and seeing what they're making and figuring out what is missing. What is missing in art? What is missing in the art that you want to see? And as an artist, as a creative person, how can you fill that void? How can you fill that void in the way that you can only do it? Visual art is really about looking around, being observant of your surroundings, and kind of realizing what you can add to that.
Derek's work has inspired me to do some relaxing. It's not always easy for me. It always feels like there's more to do, especially this year, where you can't tell if quarantine is a rest period or a jail sentence. But this has been such an incredible journey meeting the wonderful artists of North Brooklyn. I can allow myself to slip into a Slurpee mirage for a bit. Uh-oh, I guess summer's over. Stay creative, everybody. See you in the flow state.